Hello and welcome back to another Dove Diary here with Imperator Rome in the 2.0 Marius update. And this is a good one, folks. This is about that military rework that they announced a long time ago that was coming in that original roadmap that they had for the development of Imperator Rome. They had a military rework initially scheduled to come online this winter, I believe. So this time slot, this quarter, Q4 of this year, we were initially expecting a military rework anyway. This was before the announcement of Marius, the 2.0 edition of the game. And yeah, so finally, after some, a lot of good stuff has been filtering out since the Marius announcement, but nothing specific yet on the military rework that we knew to expect. So we're finally getting that today, and I'm pretty excited about it because there's a lot of good stuff in here. So let's get to reading. Okay, so this one is by Trin Tragula, the game designer at Imperator Rome. And he says, hello, and welcome to another development diary for Imperator Rome Marius update. Today, I will be talking a bit about one of the bigger changes coming to warfare and how you raise armies in the game. Dun, dun, dun. We have, right here, Levies. Now, if you recall, in my previous Dev Diary breakdown, since the release of CK3, that is Crusader Kings 3, and the expected coming of a warfare military army composition rework coming to Imperator Rome, I have predicted in a couple of previous Dev Diary breakdown videos that they will be porting some rendition, some version of the CK3 Crusader Kings 3 Levy systems into Imperator Rome for the 2.0 Marius update. Why? Well, it just makes more sense. As it is now, you raise cohorts, and that comes out of your manpower pool, which is this number here in this image here. So at the 10,515, that is the amount of soldiers you have available to you. So one cohort currently is 1,000 men, and then so you raise one cohort, subtract 1,000 from this number, so on and so forth. Now, I don't know if the manpower is going to stay as is. We'll keep reading, of course, but levies make a lot more sense historically because standing armies in antiquity were, not exactly a common sight, and that's why the levy system works so well with CK3 is because the standing army issue there as well is they're trying to represent how that historical phenomenon was more faithfully and accurately, and I'm glad that they're going this route in Imperator too. So let's start reading about levies, and I'm just gonna, just have the opportunity to gloat a little bit because my prediction appears correct. Okay, most of the era covered by this game, the armies of Rome and other major powers were mostly composed of levies. Now he's speaking historically here, not in the game as is. In the republics of the Greco-Roman world, the levy system was in many ways the foundation of democracy, based on the idea that someone who fights for the city also has the right to vote. While this was a versatile and cheap way to ensure that large armies could be mustered rapidly, the lack of professional soldiers also meant that it was hard to specialize armies and even harder to garrison faraway provinces. Good, yes, this is historically accurate. A lot of the innovations that the Roman army made, especially in the imperial period, reflect the inherent flaws of the levy system, the citizen soldier type system that was briefly mentioned here. In the Marius update, continuing reading now, in the Marius update, there are no longer any permanent armies at the start of the world. This is fantastic. I love this. There are exceptions. We will return to those. So, unless there is an exception historically, I'm thinking maybe Maria, there are no one has a permanent standing army at the start of the game because even Rome, and I'm pretty sure the Diadochi, we'll see about what the exceptions are, but yeah, pretty much nowhere in the world had a standing army. Standing armies were rare in antiquity. Okay, instead, troops are raised in time of need directly from the non-slave pops of your empire. Okay, so we have the manpower pool. Now, I'm wondering if freemen and citizens and perhaps nobles are taken out of your cities when you raise cohorts now. I would kind of like that. Okay, so here's an image. Screenshot of the current version of the Levy interface. Okay, so this is the current version with the manpower pool and all of that, with the new UI and stuff that we've seen introduced in recent dev diaries. Okay, Levy Size. Let's keep reading now. So this image By current version, does he mean the current working version or the current version in the game? Oh no, this must be what they're working on now, because they have levy size here. Okay, raise levy of size 68. Interesting. Raise levy of size 23. So those aren't very large at all, and you're gonna get 5 heavy infantry, 14 light infantry, and 4 light cavalry. So let's see, can we figure out where we are? Raise all Italia, Magna Graecia. Oh wow. So you're gonna get like nothing. You get like nothing from these whole provinces. Okay, levies, legions, ships, cohorts, traditions. Interesting. Interesting. So the military tabs here have all been reworked. Okay, I'm excited to keep reading. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Levy size. So these are very small. I have just remarked how small these levy sizes are in Italia, which is a large, which is pretty much the northern Italian peninsula, and Magna Graecia, which is the southern Italian peninsula, and Sicily. Granted, of course, Rome doesn't control all of them here. Doesn't control nearly all of them at all, but still, I mean, in the province, Latium, okay, Italia includes Latium, which includes Rome, and they can only raise 68 levies. Okay, levies are raised on a governorship basis, and only pops that belong to integrated cultures will be called up. Okay, that's interesting. That's really cool. So, as explained above, and historically, it was, now this might sound sort of counterintuitive, but it was a privilege and a sign of status to be able to serve in the army in antiquity. It was a sign that you were a citizen. It was a sign probably that you owned property, or you were in the status, or you were of the status or in the social class that allowed you to eventually own property. You weren't a slave. You weren't a conquered people. You were a citizen of the empire, and you could demonstrate that by serving in the army. And I really like that they are incorporating some of the 1.5 Menander stuff. So only integrated cultures, you will only be able to, let's say, expand the size of your army. You have more manpower depending on how many of the pops in your empire are actually integrated, right? So if you have unintegrated cultures, they will just, they don't enjoy any of the privileges of that what citizens or integrated cultures would, right? And that includes the privileges that come with serving in the army. Again, sounds counterintuitive today, but in antiquity, that was very much the case. We're continuing reading now. Since all able-bodied men from that pop are now part of your armed forces, any pop that is part of the levy will stop contributing to the economy until the levy is disbanded. Wow, I love that. Okay, so that is really a cost going to war. You lose your able-bodied men. I find it sort of remarkable that in these hyper-realistic simulations that there's been no ambition to even represent this at all until now in any game that I can think of. So since all able-bodied men from that pop are now part of your armed forces, any pop that is part of the levy will stop contributing to the economy until the levy is disbanded. So when you raise your levies, this is your able-bodied men, presumably your citizens and your freemen. There might be I hope that there are other mechanics for tribes. I think that the tribal retinues were done more or less, I mean, they're not perfect either, but they're better than the more civilized, quote-unquote, civilized countries in Imperator Rome in terms of how their army compositions were/are. So now, if you call up all of your citizens and freemen, you're not going to get taxes from them. They're off fighting weird wars for you, and it comes at a huge cost. Now, when your armies are raised anyway, you expect to lose money. So I wonder if that's going to be rebalanced at all, what it costs to pay the salaries of your soldiers, or if the cost is just reflected in the amount of money that is not being circulated throughout your economy because your able-bodied men are off fighting. Very cool. Very interesting. I like it a lot. All right, let's keep going. In addition to not producing income while levied, a pop that is part of a levy is exempt from migration, assimilation, conversion, and starvation. Perhaps most importantly, when a unit dies, so may its associated pop. Okay, so it seems like while at war, or while levied up, so while called up to levy, and your pops will not be producing income, right? But the pop number will not actually decrease, it seems. It will not go down unless the unit dies. Then it could go down. The pop will go down, representing that it has died, that the people in it have died, and instead of reducing the number, it'll just make them exempt from, the normal course of events that may or may not befall certain pops, like migration, assimilation, conversion, starvation. None of these things are going to happen to your pops while they're raised. Okay, though this also means that while raising your levies will not immediately subtract the pops in your territory. That only will happen if they die. Right. The raising levies have no cost in itself apart from a small bump in war exhaustion. Keeping the levy raised for a long time will incur a ticking war exhaustion similar to when you are at war in the current version of the game. So are they going to change that similar to when you are at war in the current version of the game? That's a good question, whether or not, because you're going to get war exhaustion from your levies. Your able-bodied freemen and citizens and nobles, presumably, are at war. They're enthusiastic about it to a certain extent, to a certain degree, and for a certain amount of time. And then once they're sort of sick of it and they want to go home, this is represented in the war exhaustion mechanic. And being at war for a long time currently ticks up war exhaustion, so we'll see if they rebalance that, get rid of it. They shouldn't get rid of it, I don't think, but maybe nerf it a bit so that the two can work in tandem. Okay, let's keep going. There's another image here. There's no subtitle for it. Looks like the same image as the one above here. Can't tell. Well, there's no black screen here. Right. Okay. Oh, I see. They do have a bit more information. So they tell you here what you're going to be losing out on when you raise levies. So you're going to lose I guess this is per month, 2.74 gold, and then that's 2.74 tax, 684 manpower, and 35.8 research points. So that sounds pretty hefty. You definitely don't want to keep your levies raised for longer than you need. Okay, how many of the integrated culture pops that are mobilized if you choose to raise your levy is mainly dependent on two things. Current military reform law, that's good. The laws are an excellent part of Imperator Rome. To integrate them more with other mechanics would be fantastic, such as like who can serve in your military, what kind of incentive is there to serve in the military, what do they get paid, what do they get out of it, maybe property. There is an event already where basically you have the option of settling veterans in a piece of land, and if they expand on that concept even more, that would be really cool. Make that part of the law or something, that veterans get farmland or something after serving for 10 years. However, it would be really cool to have more immersive laws like that. Yeah, keep reading now. These have been laws have been revamped a bit for both monarchies and republics. Cool. That was in parentheses. And the second thing, in addition to current military reform law, is economic policy. The latter may be preferable if you want to decrease or increase your levy size somewhat temporarily, while laws are better for long-term goals. Okay, so you can use economic policies to increase or decrease the size of your levies temporarily, I suppose, and this will save you or cost you depending on what you're trying to accomplish. Republican laws for levies tend to give slightly bigger numbers than those of the monarchies, who on the other hand have easier access to legions, but more on those later. Okay, Republican laws for levies tend to give slightly bigger numbers. So you get bigger levies from Republican laws, which makes sense because all the people vote there. So being a part of the citizenry also means you're a soldier and you get more levies. But you get fewer legions. Now, they haven't gone over legions, but I'm going to go ahead and guess that these act like a bit like men-at-arms in Crusader Kings 3, if you're playing that at all, or specialized units, heavy infantry / specialized units, and then monarchies get more of these, whereas republics get bigger levies. So there's a third image here. It looks like we have the government tab. And let's take a look here. So inside the government tab, we have government, offices, and laws. Cool. So we have an example of military reform law, Servian levy, and we're playing as Rome here. So we'll not be able to raise any legions when the Servian levy law is enacted. But your manpower recovery speed is 5%, so they still do have manpower decisively here. We've seen it mentioned twice now, but I do wonder how the dynamics of that will change given the new levy system. Okay, so levy size multiplier plus 10%. And it's in red, making it sound bad. Okay, then you get approval from the different parties. Okay, so this is playing as a republic. Get some tyranny. Good. Okay, so this is just an example of how manpower and levy size have sort of this interplay going on that is sort of dependent on your laws a little bit. And we have other laws here: election reforms, assembly endorsement. So there's probably going to be a DD down the road, a dev diary on laws, and because I'm seeing some new stuff here. Religious laws, assembly endorsement, citizenship laws. I mean, some of these are existing already. Very cool. Very cool. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. All right, here's the subtitle for the image we just looked at. An example of a law affecting levy size. The color coding is not final. All right, so I was confused about levy size multiplier being in red, which is a bad thing. So you get more levies. So why would that be bad? And I'm thinking maybe the only reason is because they cost more. Don't know. But the color coding is not final. Trin Tregula has assured us. Levy troop composition and troop type. Okay. So troop composition and troop type, they hinted at a bit above. I'm thinking that levies and legions will be at some interplay here. So we'll see how that goes. Unlike the current version of the game, you do not have direct control over what kind of troops your levied armies contain. What kind of troops you get is instead dependent on the culture of the pops being raised. Yes! This is one thing I directly sort of asked for in the last Dev Diary breakdown video I did, where I said troops should be, specialized unit types should be directly correspondent with their culture. I love it! And I gave the example of Thracian slingers, and yeah, this is exactly what I asked for in a previous video. Okay, with each culture in the game having its own preferred troop type template. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. This is exactly the kind of flavor that this game needs in order to make it feel like the world is living and breathing. So I gave the example of Thracian slingers. Again, I'm not going to fully, I'm not guaranteeing that that's an actually historical example, but I seem to recall Thracian slingers being a specialized unit in the Roman Empire. So if you conquer Thrace as Rome, you'll get access to that, but only if you integrate Thrace as a culture, you see. And then the levies, or the troops you raise there in Thrace, or from the Thracians, will be that specialized slinger, theoretically. Okay, this means that levied troops will vary greatly depending on where in the world you are raising them and depending on what cultures you have integrated. Okay, so this allows for so much variation, so much dynamism. This is really what Imperator Rome is missing. It's that interplay of the flavor. Now, flavor does not just, it's not just for fun or to make things more interesting. It's so that it can work with mechanics to make just everything more immersive and more meaningful and more dynamic for the player in a campaign. I think this is perhaps the best piece of news I've heard since the Marius 2.0 announcement. And okay, so they gone to give an example here. An Etruscan levy is going to be different from a Roman one, right? And a Macedonian levy will be different from a Carthaginian one. Okay, but how? In addition to each being dependent on culture, the unit type maps to different pop types. A cohort of heavy cavalry is going to be raised from citizens or nobles, whereas an archer cohort would be coming from freemen or tribesmen. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So yeah, only citizens or nobles would be heavy cavalry. There were no knights there were in the medieval sense in that time, I don't think. But only the nobles, perhaps citizens, rode heavy cavalry. And then freemen and tribesmen are more likely to be in the less glamorous roles, like Thracian slingers. Okay, so here's another. Here is another image. A Persian levy raised in the hinterland of the Persis governorship. Okay, so Persis is here. This province area. Okay, so let's take a look here. Can't really tell what it is. I mean, we have. Oh, and another prediction, not really a prediction of mine, but another thing I noticed in a previous Dev Diary video and sort of pointed out was, looks like they're cutting the cohorts in half. So now if you raise one cohort, it's 1,000 men. Now it looks like it's going to be 500. So we have 7 here, it's 3,500, so that's 7,000. We have 4 here, it's 2,000, etc., etc. So that's something I noticed. But in terms of the Persian levy here, I can't really tell what about it is unique to Persia. All I see is the army composition here. I see a leader here. And I don't know. Okay. One thing this means is that if you move into a new region and integrate a culture there in order to gain access to their levies, you will also benefit from unlocking their military traditions, which are built to focus on strengthening the troops commonly levied for the cultures associated with it. Awesome. So, a couple Dev Diaries ago, they were focusing on military traditions and giving that a rework. And I also commented at the time that it would be really great if they could integrate military traditions with culture in a more meaningful and impactful way. And I said that in order to gain access to foreign military traditions, you should have to control the area or have some access, have some reason to gain knowledge of a foreign military tradition. And here it is. You'll have to integrate that culture into your empire before you will have access to A, their levies, and B, their military traditions. But I mean, this is a great way to create dynamism, and I think this will totally change the way the game is played. I love it, I really do. Okay, so where are we? Right. Let's keep going. We have another image here. Okay, and as an example, Persian military traditions have a branch that strongly focuses on heavy cavalry. Okay, this is just displaying that, you know, in order to demonstrate the historical Persian emphasis on heavy cavalry, they have their own heavy cavalry branch, right? That's all we're looking at here, I'm pretty sure. Another effect of the levy system is that you will find that you will not always have the troops that you wish at your disposal. A levy in northern Italy or Gaul will see some nobles bringing chariots to the battlefield. In Arabia, there will be camels, and so on. A general usually has to find a way to fight with the army he's got, rarely the one he wants. What we intend with this system is that players will have interesting challenges in the military development of their empire, with the nature of your armies evolving alongside your culture and geographical expanse. Yeah, this is awesome. This is great. This is different than other Paradox games. Okay, other Paradox games, and there's nothing wrong with that, but this is the first time I've really seen the idea that your units are integrally tied with your culture, with your pops, with your people, with the story of the development and evolution of your campaign, your playthrough, and I just think that this allows for a level of immersion and dynamism that does not exist in the current build of the game. We'll see how well they implement it. This is quite ambitious, if we're being frank, and you know, there's good on paper and good in practice. I really hope they pull this off. This is really cool. Right. So if you find yourself, you know, fighting the Gauls, let's say, and you have you don't have the right kind of levies, you don't have the right kind of troops to defeat them, you're going to have to find the specialized troops, the levies that give you the edge that you need, and try to integrate them. That might be a potential strategy. That is just an example. Okay, below here we have another image with no subtitle, and this is the Antigonid Kingdom here. We have a stack of 11,000. I don't. This might just be an example of an Antigonid levy, similar to this Persian one up here. Okay, the levy commander. As was the case historically, we have given the governor a greater military importance when it comes to levies. Good. So, governors typically did the military work of the age. So, the governor of Gaul, in Rome anyway, would be the one mostly responsible for doing the continuing the conquering of Gaul, right? They would send another general up there typically. Okay, as was often the case historically, we have given the governor a greater military importance when it comes to levies. The governor of the governorship from which the levy is raised will be considered the commander for all armies levied from there. This means that in addition to picking someone who is both capable and loyal enough for you to expect to be able to control them, you now need to take into account their military skills. This is great. So now, before, when you appoint your governors, you pay attention to their finesse, you pay attention to their charisma, you pay attention to perhaps their piety, if you want to convert, or their zeal, rather, and not martial so much. I mean, martial to for loyalty, right, for the loyalty stacks, but now martial comes into play a lot more when it comes to selecting your governor, because they are going to double as your generals, as should be. I mean, that's how it was historically. Your governor is not only the one who will ensure taxes reach you on time, they are also the person who will lead your troops from the designated region. Yeah, so I do think governors should be more important, and not just in a... As it is now, they already can cause enough trouble in that they can easily accumulate enough power to start a civil war. You do need to keep them loyal, happy, placated, and all of this, and that's all good. However, they do feel a bit lifeless, not a lot of character to them, and if you basically combine the roles of general and governor, which was the case in the time period, I think that you allow a lot more potential for caring about who these people are. We don't need like a full CK3 character system, but it's really, the characters are really forgettable. So this is a way to make them more prominent and important. Tribal levies. So I'm curious about this. The systems they've been going through up until now have made a lot of sense for like the Antagonists, for Persian, Roman, and Greek and Carthaginian factions, the developed factions. But for tribes who already have their own kind of system, the tribal retinue system, we'll see how that differs. Okay. In a tribal country, political leadership is shared between a number of clan chiefs, with the rural rulership of the country passing between them with each succession. In previous versions of Imperator, clan chiefs have also had one permanently raised clan retinue with a number of units under their command, increasing their power base as well as giving the player cheap troops. In the Marius update, tribal retinues will no longer exist. Oh, so they have scrapped tribal retinues completely. Tribes will also never have access to legions, unlike monarchies and republics. So that's good. Tribes shouldn't have legions. Alright, so they're scrapping tribal retinues. We'll see what they replace it with. When levies are raised in a tribal country, they will attempt to converge into at least as many armies as there are clan chiefs. Alright, so they get levies too. You raise the levies, and they converge into at least as many armies as there are clan chiefs. Okay, so if you have 3 clan chiefs, instead of having 3 clan retinues, you will get 3 armies when you raise your levies. Okay, granting command of 1 army to each stakeholder in the tribe. This means that for a small tribe, the raised levies can result in 3 quite small armies, similar to how retinue sizes are currently quite small. Good. I like that. All troops that are raised... I think that there are altogether way too many troops on the field in Imperator Rome as is. Cutting it in half is a good start. They should cut it back into a quarter, I think. Alright, all troops that are raised in a tribe will also start out with personal loyalty to one of the clan chiefs, meaning that clan chief power base will spike in times of war when levies are called. That's really cool. I like that they're making this military rework not just... I don't just want to play it as republics and monarchies, but I would very much like to go back to playing as a tribe now, because the interplay that they've created here as well. Okay, clan chief power base will spike in times of war when levies are called. That is really cool because it not only reflects the historical time period, but it's a way to get power. Say that you are a tribal chief and you want to increase your power base. Well, you have an incentive to sort of get your tribe to go to war. And then you become as a stakeholder, you become the beneficiary of that. Okay, after the war, when levies are disbanded, they will turn into loyal veterans, similar to how loyal troops already do when disbanded in the current version of the game. Increasing the power base of your clan chiefs will with every war you fight until the clan chief dies and a new chief takes their place. So the more loyal troops you have, the more power base you have, similar to how, that's how disbanded troops work currently. Okay, clan chiefs not leading an army. For instance, if you wish to merge your tribal levies or if their army was destroyed. Okay, so just because you have 3 or 4 tribal levy armies does not mean you can't merge them. As we see here, you can. So you merge them, you only have 1 leader, and then your other leaders will not be leading. When you're at war, will get a sharp loyalty penalty since they're not allowed to act out their authority like they expect. Clan chiefs in command of an army, on the other hand, will receive a substantial loyalty increase for as long as the war lasts. So, clan chiefs that are not commanding an army will pout. They will not like that. Their rivals, who are at the heads of armies, are looking a lot better. And they are more loyal for it. Okay, we hope the task of forging a strong united tribal army that can challenge the established empires despite a measure of internal strife and disunity will be an interesting challenge for the player. I'll tell you, that sounds like an interesting challenge, and I kind of can't wait to try it out with either the Gauls or the Germanic or Iberic tribes, any of them really. Does the introduction of levies mean that we have no military commanders or prominent armies anymore? That we will now never have any control over what troops we bring to war? Not at all. As hinted before, the permanent army is not gone completely, but as in history it will only ever enter the scheme gradually, and only for monarchies and republics. It will see its return in the form of a feature we call legions, permanent armies of the kind the Roman legion system developed into after the Punic Wars and brought into the imperial era. So at the start of the game, Rome is in a favorable position to expand, of course, but is very, very small. And it does not have legions. It does not have most of the things that we recall from history. All of the imagery of Rome. In fact, at that time, it wasn't even really built of marble. It was built of brick. All of the marble structures, the Senate House and the like, underwent renovations, reconstructions, and the Colosseum, for example, wasn't built until much, much later. So the same is true with their military. They did not have legions during the start of the game. This is something that you have to find, research, figure out, and I think that should be one of the challenges and one of the really rewarding things you get for playing it properly. Getting your legions online ought to change the balance of power once it happens, but you got to make it happen as the player. I think that's really cool. Okay, permanent armies of the kind that the Roman legion system developed into after the Punic War and brought into the imperial era. So the Punic Wars, you're set up to fight them already in the current build of the game. So you're supposed to fight the Punic Wars and then develop your legions, or vice versa. But I like that there's a development path now. They're actually trying to have history unfold, because it doesn't feel like that currently. And things are unfolding in the way your integrated cultures form the base, the nucleus of your armies, the levies, and that you can't get them except for a unique set of circumstances which add a level of dynamism to this game that is sorely lacking, and I'm really excited for all of this. This might be the best dev diary since the Marius announcement. Okay, we will be talking more about legions, their composition and specialization, and the way that they will follow you throughout a campaign in a future development diary. Okay, I think that's it. That is it for now. There are no dislikes on this. Everybody is completely stoked. And I am also quite happy with what we have seen. So I would love to know what you have to say, what you think about this military army rework that we have gotten from Trin Tragula and the Imperator Rome team for the Marius 2.0 update. Do you like it? Are you excited for it? Are you excited more to play as a monarchy, republic, or tribe? What do you think about the unique levy system and the unique levy units? The unique units being tied in with the cultures, and that you can't access them unless you've integrated the culture. And what do you think about nobles and citizens being mounted on heavy cavalry while the tribesmen are archers and the like. I think all of this, it just adds up to the potential for dynamism, unique playthroughs, really unique countries to emerge, especially with the World Wonders, especially with all these other dynamics that they're going to be introducing with the Marius 2.0 update. I'm really excited. So please let me know what you think with the comment down below. Hit that like button, hit that bell notification button. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.